Welcome to the Dogbus channel, the Dogbustiest channel on YouTube and home to the largest fleet of dog buses in the world. Here at Le Château Fancypants, our boarding facility for July 4th weekend, this is DINGOES, our 2023 Chevy Express-based Collins SL400, formerly Bantam, and it's our youngest bus. And despite being maybe our best bus, it's also our least interesting one. No news is good news, and I've rarely received word of any issues with this bus. But it has happened a few times now. Stay tuned for more on that. But let's start from the beginning. Things were going well enough with animals and puppies, running in regular service, but between the two of them, they certainly kept things interesting. Wildlife was great for me to run as the owner, because I can deal with problems more easily myself and tolerate annoyances that wouldn't be reasonable for our other drivers to be asked to manage. Check out our previous videos for more about those buses. So eventually things got a little too interesting as far as maintenance, and the mean time before failure, or MTBF, of our fleet was shrinking. We used roadside service one too many times, and the insurance company got mad. They had tried to revoke our insurance for using roadside service. No accidents, no actual driving incidents of any sort, just roadside service. After defeating my insurance company with a well-placed complaint to the New York Department of Financial Services, I did indicate to them that with the purchase of a new bus, our MTBF should greatly decrease. And I did follow through on that promise. Take my word for it, use your insurance company's roadside service only as a last resort. Since I'd settled on the combination of Chevy and Collins, I figured what better than a brand new one? Anything but a Ford, so Chevy it is. Some of you may wonder, no, there are next to no Dodge-based buses. Almost no one is that stupid. There are some Dodge-based low-floor buses that work because the Italian Fiat van that Dodge rebadges as the Ram van is front-wheel drive. Great concept that I would love to see more of, but not worth the risk. I've only ever seen one of them in the wild. It would get beaten to hell on the streets of New York, and as a Fiat owner, I would always be left saying, fix it again, Tony. The story of getting DINGOES from a dealership in Texas was not very exciting, but as is written, there has to be some kind of problem, right? The most obvious problem was that, whereas my previous new bus cost about $50,000, the price had gone up to $80,000 following the pandemic. I got over that because I had to, and even paid to have the bus driven to New York, since another trip wasn't going to work out at that time. Lo and behold, I receive a call from the driver. He's parked at a rest stop in Virginia, and a trailer has backed into the bus. He asked me if I want him to drive back to Texas and get a different bus, and I say no. And that's how even a perfect brand new bus can still find a way to have a problem right off the bat. Because I was so pressed to put it into service, it was a good while before I finally got that damage fixed. I already had to delay a week having a cat shield installed for $2,000 at the same place that did the seats in Wildlife, as well as the cat shield on animals that I neglected to mention in that video, though I did mention the theft of those catalytic converters. In any case, since entering service in July of 2023, DINGOES has had a few problems, whose solutions for the most part were not too expensive. I received a report one day that the AC was acting funny and the bus was randomly shutting off. With animals to the rescue to replace it, I was able to discern that turning the AC on caused the bus to shut off. Somewhat of a relief, a problem with an identifiable cause, and a way to prevent the problem until reaching the mechanic. It turned out it was just a fuse of some sort. And for the first time ever, a problem was actually covered under the bus manufacturer's warranty and arranged with absolutely no input by myself, by our Collins authorized bus fleet mechanic. I had tried in the past contacting StarCraft regarding problems with puppies, and they denied that any warranty existed to begin with. Typical. More recently, the transmission started to act funny. The bus would sometimes lurch slightly after coming to a stop. This was related to an existing recall, another free repair. All I had to do was bring the bus to the dealer, where it would take a week to determine that the catalytic converter shield was in the way of the area that needed repair, take the bus back to the welding shop where I had the catalytic converter shield installed, have it removed, bring the bus back to the dealer for the repair, pick it up again, and then back to the welding shop to have the shield reinstalled. Easy. Well, I'm back at the GM dealer, and as you can see, I was compelled to use my oldest bus to rescue my newest bus due to various logistical factors that made it impossible for me to use a more efficient vehicle. It's pretty entertaining for me that I have both of these here, and they still work. And most recently, a mysterious speaker somewhere on or near the front fuse panel started crackling and beeping very loudly for about one day and drove our staff nuts. And then the next day did so more quietly, and following that acted up randomly a couple of more times before stopping. DINGOES has been in for regular preventative maintenance, picked it up just 2 days ago, but that problem they were not able to replicate or otherwise identify if it was a problem. In any case, DINGOES has turned out to be mostly fantastic, and for those of you who wonder why these dinosaurs are still on the road, it's because they work. They have ubiquitous availability of parts, and many mechanics who are familiar with them, and it turns out that attempts at making better versions have so far basically failed. In fact, Ford still has available a 2026 Econoline Cutaway, because many upfitters and customers do prefer a Ford, but not the new Transit. Let's take a look inside, and in our next and last video in the initial series about our newest used bus from 2008, we can compare dashboards and show how next to nothing has changed. Personally, I'm okay with wearing basically the same uniform for long periods of time because it works for me, and the same goes for this bus. It's pretty damn regular looking. Maybe a little more interesting than a cinder block, but what are you going to do? It's a bus. I'd love to see a Dogbus designed by Luigi Colani. All right, let's have a look inside DINGOES. There's already a bunch of dogs that have gone on board because they just kind of like being there. Not a very interesting bus. Here's Storm in the driver's seat, and I would love it if you could in fact do our next trip, but I think I'm going to have to do it. And here's the separation gate that I built. This is so far the best one that I've made, but since then I actually learned how to weld at least well enough to make a somewhat better frame than this. There's Bash and Harry and Leia and Sadie Bobtail. And there's Leia's brother Hippo. Tacked on this little bit of a screen that I gave them. They cut it out to protect the intake on the air conditioner, which I appreciate very much. And here's a view from the back to the front. Because we have more buses in service now, it's been kind of easier to keep them cleaner, and at least at initial glance, this bus should look pretty clean. And I haven't even swept it out for this video. Hey, Beshki. Stormy. Stormy in the driver's seat. Are you so handsome? You're so sick and handsome, aren't you? Yeah. What do you think of the Fancypants Hotel? Are you a fan? Are you a fan of the Fancypants? I think you are. I'm not sure in which model year it occurred, but Collins has finally figured out how to make windows that close fully and confidently, which previously was only a thing for bluebirds, at least in my experience. These sliders are really easy to grab, and they give you that really sure tactile feeling that you're doing the thing that you're doing, and it seems like they'll work forever. Almost all buses come with some version of this kit because kids tend to puke a lot and hurt themselves. These locking mechanisms at the back of the bus are encased nicely in steel or aluminum boxes and look very sturdy, which is not the case even on previous Collins buses, and I have had problems with these mechanisms on other buses. In fact, on Puppies, part of this mechanism was basically broken, even when it was brand new, when I drove it off the lot. These ones look really good. This mechanism is meant to make sure that the door stays confidently closed while the bus is in motion, but is also available to be opened for emergency purposes. Anyway, that's what I've got for now on Dingoes. You may have noticed that it's been many moons since we filmed our first few videos, and you can be sure that a lot has happened since then in the Dogbus world, so stay tuned for the last video in this initial series, and eventually we'll get to updates on our other buses. The number of issues is somewhat overwhelming, and I definitely forgot to mention many things in our previous videos, and I will aim, if not at least for my own purposes, to have a definitive compilation and record of all the parts that have been replaced on our various buses. If there are too many in the end, I'll just scroll them across the screen. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe so I know you want to see more, and let us know what else you'd like to know about our dog buses. See you next time.